moving some tires over from one set of rims to another set of rims.
Feet long, about a minute out.
All right. All right. Gonna do a little wrenching today. One of these days, probably get the Sherpa done. Couple minutes here, couple minutes there. What we're focusing on right now is part of the list that I made on the last video that I shot that hasn't been released yet. So you'll remember that once you see it after it's released. But we need rims and tires. Currently taking apart the Vanquish wheels. Easy peasy, 4 bolts each. Face pops out. And then the beadlock ring.
Welcome everyone, we are here.
All right, we are here evidently. Get a little overhead cam. Taking these Vanquish wheels off. And as you can see, they've got this faceplate with the trim ring, the front beadlock ring that is actually held on by all these bolts, little scale bolts. Then we have our beadlock ring, and then our back piece. And when you combine the face with the back piece, you have a functioning beadlock and a floating ring. Really easy to take apart. 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. Bam, they come apart. But because of these 4 bolts in the rear of the wheel, the easy bolts, the game changers, if you will, Vanquish coming out with that sort of design really changed the beadlock market. Definitely an advantage for taking apart and putting together wheels. But the one downside to it is where those bolts are, it prevents you from having as much offset as something like this TGH-HO wheel, which stands for heavy offset. The reason why I'm putting these on is that the Capra uses, or the Sherpa uses Capra axles. And because of that, we need to use something with a lot of offset to get the track width where we want it to. In a traditional beadlock that copies Vanquish designs, or that is Vanquish designs, can't quite get as much offset. So, the chore of lots of bolts. Now, on this TGH wheel, to clamp down the entire thing, you do have to undo all of these screws. And it's not a full-scale sort of setup with a bazillion little bitty screws. This is more of a competition style, so it has as many bolts as it needs to be strong and do the job. But the downside is that when you change your wheels and tires, or change your tires onto different rims, or change your tires on the same rims, it takes all these screws to get it in and out. Now we want to make sure that we have our functioning front set as a pair, because I'm using the brass on the front for more weight and the aluminum on the rear. So we'll have this down like that, treads facing each other. This will go in the front. This will go in the front. There we go, get the bead trapped. And same for the front. I was really tempted to steal some black rings. And I may actually end up trading these wheels out. I've got another set behind me on the Bastard Junior that I built. And I may trade those because they're black. But we'll see how they look. There we go. Just want to make sure I got it all seated nicely first. No hurries when putting beadlocks together. Well, I feel like a broken record asking what you're working on when I'm working on the same thing that I have been for a long time. this here Sherpa build. But I have a list. I'm checking it twice. The first thing on the list is make list. So I was able to check that off first. We are well on our way to checking things off the list. After tires and rims, we need to put in the electronics, the servo, the motor speed controller, and we'll probably need a battery and some sort of radio. Probably, if we want this radio control car to work, might be required. There we are. I'm just putting 4 bolts in for now. Mostly because I lost bolts from one of the wheels, screws from one of the wheels, and just to keep me from losing parts, I'm going to go ahead and put these Vanquish wheels back together in the box. May as well. We don't want to leave more messes for ourselves last time.
These are for the Sherpa?
These wheels are not for the Sherpa. I took them off to get the tires that I wanted onto the rims that I wanted onto the Sherpa. So these guys, these Vanquish wheels or rims, they're going into the box with all my extra ones.
Ryan Coda says he's got a Sherpa. He loves it. It's such a nice setup.
Thanks for the feedback, Ryan. He likes his Sherpa. Yeah, I'm looking.
Jeremy's asking about the Castle Copperhead paired good with your Puller Pro Stubby 2700K.
Puller Pro Stubby paired with a Copperhead. Yes, it pairs very well. We would recommend the aftermarket sensor wire. I make one, Castle makes one. We both make it. It gets rid of the little adapter piece that sits at the ESC. So it goes from a, if I remember correctly, a 1 millimeter pitch to or a 2 millimeter pitch to a 1/10 of an inch pitch or something like that. Either way, gets rid of the adapter in the middle. And that's always a good thing. Actually, I got one sitting right here. Yeah, so typically on a Copperhead, there's going to be another plug right here, and your standard sensor wire will plug into that. And then there is this different plug. You can maybe see that there's a little different size between those two. That goes into the ESC directly. And you definitely want one that has the ESC's correct plug on that side and then a normal sensor plug on that side. At least long term, it is a good idea. The extra plug, when you use the adapter piece that comes with many Castles, the risk is that it gets contaminated. You have one extra plug in line with everything. That's generally not advantageous. Well, you know what else is not advantageous is using the wrong size tool for the job. I was wondering why that screw wasn't going in. Gotta have your SAE for the Vanquish wheels. What is this, a 3/32? Yeah, I'll be looking forward to wheeling this rig. I have driven them before, but I haven't driven mine yet on my rocks. So one of these days. Close though. Maybe by Christmas. It'll be my Christmas present to myself is building a rig. Although at home right now I'm building up the VP Phoenix that just got released. All right, we got three rims. We got 4 rims. Into the box you go. So I'm spending my time at home building up the Phoenix. Another set. Let's see, what do we have here? We got something else from VP. Some methods. We got some other ones in here. I don't know what these are. KMC XD127 bullies. Fantastic. As not a full-size guy, I don't really know what that means. But it's fine. It's fine. These are cool-looking rims. Got some more HOs right here. We'll just check out. We got some 2.2XDs as well that a local that sold them to me continuously keeps trying to buy them back. That's great. That's how it is, though. We always don't like getting rid of stuff, right? We're not a hoarder. It's just called savings. All right, now we got rid of all the SAE bolts, screws that were on this. So now we can put the metrics on. Perfect. Now, get this out of here.
And we got a couple comments coming in. Chainsaw says he's soldering and installing LEDs into his G-Made Buffalo.
Hey, we got some LEDs. LEDs getting installed out there.
What was the new rig you got with LEDs already in it and had all the turn sigs?
Oh yeah, the Rebel RC that we just tested had the just full light kit. Really,
That was fun.
yeah, it was. That one in particular, I was just going to borrow it from Jeff, and they sent it in just so I could check it out. And I messaged him back the other day, like, yeah, I might want to keep this one because any sort of night riding, it's already got a full light kit on it, and I think with just a few modifications, since it's already got the big light kit, I kind of don't want to change bodies, honestly. So I'm going to keep the same body and see about either sourcing or figuring out a more lightweight body mount system. And we can get all that heavy steel out of the back. Probably putting some maybe weighted front tires on it would help as well. Kind of cheat your way to a low center of gravity just by adding more weight down low. Yep, might do that. But at any rate, I'll be keeping that rig.
Mike Warner.
Thanks, Jeff.
Working on his 1/10 scale Wraith. Working on that right now. We got Redback. He says the Revolver V2 2500 kV. Think it'll be okay on the axial Yeti with 3S?
A Yeti with a revolver. I wouldn't actually recommend that. You're going to want an in-runner for efficiency. The Yetis are geared pretty high. It's more of a high-speed rig. So I always would run the Polar Pros on mine. The 3500 on 3S always seemed to be a pretty good match. But a revolver, definitely would not suggest a revolver. Even the 2500, it's a 10-pole. It would work, I suppose. The full size, not the snub nose. It would work. I'd probably want to gear it down a little bit. But for the efficiency and having the load at high speed, you need a motor that is more efficient at higher speeds. And because of the commutation frequency, the switching rate of higher pole counts like 10 poles, that does not make them suitable for going fast in fast rigs. Really doesn't. So wouldn't recommend that. But if you want to try it, just keep an eye on the heat. Test it out, every 30 seconds at first. Do a pull, come back, test your heat. Do a pull, come back, test your heat. That is what I would recommend. Just to be on the safe side. All right. Got our screws out.
David was asking if you use any weights in your wheels. Do you do any advanced tuning like that?
Yeah, David was asking about weights in the wheels. So back in the day, we definitely did a lot of that. And these days, what I'm using is actually a brass inner ring on my front wheels and an aluminum inner ring on the rear wheels. And what that does is give us some weight bias. I don't like too much rotating mass, though. The more rotating mass you have inside the tires, the more likely you're going to be to break parts in your rig. So if you are wanting more weight and lower weight besides just some basic, small amount of weight, I should say, as far as using the brass fronts, then outside of that, I would say you want to go to metal axles to get your weight down low in the front in particular, so you can get some forward weight bias. But yeah, I really don't mess with weight in the actual wheels other than brass rings that are the actual wheels. Now, the one time where I may add some mass into the system is if I'm doing a competition rig. You can flip yourself over in a competition rig by going forward to reverse really hard, back and forth, in tune with how the rig rocks back and forth. So it depends on how heavy the rig and how much mass you have on the front end and back end of the rig. But you can actually use that, and having more mass inside your wheels, there's a critical amount so that you can actually do that rocking maneuver, and it gets the vehicle kind of going back and forwards. And then you don't have to pay for a rollover. You don't have to get penalized and get points on a rollover touch of rolling your rig back over. So there is a critical mass, and it will depend on the rig and how far the mass of the rig is spread out, and also the diameter that your mass is on your tires. But in that case, and yeah, I'd say, test and tune, maybe start with 4 ounces. And you can do it on just one set of wheels, so you can do it just on the fronts to get your momentum to rock back and forth. But you can also do it on the rear as well.
Hey, Jeremiah is asking a question. He says, how's the torque on the Trailmaster Pro brushless motor? He's got 3 rigs that need motors and ESCs.
Aha, Jeremiah is asking about the torque on the Trailmaster Pro brushless motor. And it is certainly suitable. It's a 2-pole motor, but it also has a large rotor inside. And that helps it produce a lot more torque than the average 2-pole motor. It is no slouch. It doesn't quite have the torque density of a Puller Pro, because the Puller Pro is 4-pole. We can get away with a stubby, what we need a full-size Trailmaster to do. But cost-to-benefit ratio of buying some, you say you need 3 rigs. I know that they are on clearance right now because we're actually going to get rid of the Trailmaster Pro Series long-term, but they're an extremely affordable choice with smooth startup. You wouldn't guess it was a 2-pole, honestly. It's extremely smooth. Smooth enough for a rock crawler. So yeah, I would say those, and choose whatever kV that you need for your wheel speed needs. 2700 kV is always a pretty good choice, 3300 even. You can gear it down with that 2-pole and gain your drag brake at the wheel. Gain some drag brake with a little more gear down. Use a faster motor. Volt up, gear down, or in this case, kV up and gear down, because I'm assuming you're probably going to be running 3S LiPo already, which is what you should be doing. Good question. Yep. I don't run those Trailmaster Pro motors often enough. I usually run the latest thing that I'm working on. And it is not the Trailmaster Pro. Let's see here. That one's in the right spot.
Yeah, Drift Craze asking about those motor savers. When they're coming back.
Drift Craze asking about motor savers again. I don't know if Don is going to produce those again. I guess we could ask him about that. But if you want some of those motor savers, what's his current? Is it Billet Work? I think his current company is Billet Works Machine. I think it still is his company name, BWD. I'm sorry, Don, that I can't remember right now what your current company name is. However, he's the dude. If you go to our product description and see what company it is, probably. All right, need to make sure that these are, once again, matching pairs. Y'all are trying to distract me. But yes, I don't have any plan of producing any of those motor savers again. To actually answer the question, is there's not a whole lot of people in the world that want them. There's basically you, Drift Craze. I've been watching you. It's kind of funny. I totally get it, though. You want some of them. I pinched that bead. Pinched the carcass.
And while we're distracting you, Chainsaw's asking a question. He says he's going to get the Mamba X for his Rift. What motor do you recommend?
For the Rift, with the Mamba X, a viewer is asking what motor?
Yep, he's wanting to know what motor you might recommend.
For the Rift. Well, 2100 or 2200 Puller Pro R from my catalog would be the one. You want a lot of motor. Essentially, the Rift is a fast rig, and any fast rig you want as much motor as you can cram into it. So that's what I would use for a sane setup. For a not so sane setup, I would bump up to a 2700 kV in that same Puller Pro R.
Drift Craze chiming in on that. He says maybe 3500 Puller Pro.
I wouldn't go as high as 3500 on the Rift just because of the gearing ratio that it has. It'd work, but it's going to be just insane. Way too fast, in my opinion. My professional opinion. Would that be professional opinion because I do this for a living?
Hey, speaking of opinions, what's your opinion on motors that have everything built into them? Is that like the Fusion maybe he's talking about? Or like...
Yeah. We have a viewer that's asking about, what do I think about the Fusion essentially, motor built into, or the ESC built into the motor. And I think they do have their place. Obviously, people like them. I have a few Fusions behind me as well. And the one gripe that I hear from people is that they don't have great torque density. They don't put down much power. Great, smooth for crawling, plenty for crawling. I mean, we use brushed motors that are relatively weak, and it gets the job done, right? But as compared to other brushless setups, certainly compared to like a Puller Pro and a Mamba X, the power on them is noticeably less. Noticeably a big difference in power. As far as the packaging, as technology progresses, I'm sure we'll be able to get more and more torque-dense situations, torque-dense combos, if you will, all-in-ones, using better MOSFETs. There are techniques, there are motor techniques that can be done that will increase the torque density of that. So, yeah, I mean, I can't tell you what I'm working on, but I'm always working on new products. That's my job. Well, that and to wrench on this one project for 2 years straight. It's a
5-year plan, right?
It's a 5-year plan. Yeah, right. By the time that this is done, this fad called rock crawling will be all over. Nobody will even remember it. That's what we've been telling ourselves since about 2004. Well, 2005, if we want to talk about Holmes Hobbies as a company. But that has always been the joke. This fad of rock crawling. It's going to bust at any moment. And look at us now. There's so many rigs.
Got 2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that RebelCon actually was a nice surprise of new rig, because I've seen, my share of new rigs around, and that one was surprisingly good. And then I'm really digging that Phoenix build, though, the VS10. Such high quality. That one's, but that was a kit that cost just as much as the whole ready-to-run RebelCon. Got to be fair about it now. All right, I'm pretty sure got ourselves a pair of tires, wheels. Make sure this beads in. Nope. Make sure that beads in. Yeah, good questions, guys. My question for you: why aren't you working right now? You should be doing something that is not YouTube. Maybe you work night shift, or maybe you're retired. I know my viewer age group, though, and the majority of you shouldn't be retired yet. Unless you made some really good moves in Silicon Valley.
Dogecoin millionaires.
Some Dogecoin millionaires out there? Is that a thing anymore? Or did the precipitous drop from 70 cents down to 16 cents kill off all of the millionaires? I want to know.
David Fountain hit you with that $20 super chat.
Oh, awesome. Appreciate the super chat.
Didn't have a question yet, just hit you with the 20.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate any of those donations, any of the super chats. The ability to run this channel is on the back of Holmes Hobbies, but as we get more and more of the other avenues, such as super chats, or maybe we should open up a Patreon, then we will be able to film more and do more work. Thinking about doing a second channel. And if we did that, then we'd have to approach it as a YouTube channel and monetize.
Buy that merch.
Yeah, buy that merch. That's right.
Hey, Chainsaw, he piped in. This makes a lot more sense. He says he's a tree climber, so he gets the winters off.
Hey, he Chainsaw's a tree climber, and that's why he's watching, because it is wintertime. Most of our tree companies around here do snow removal and all such as that, just so they stay busy. So it seems that's the trend. Of course, it's not snowing here either, so I suppose they are also probably watching YouTube right now. All right.
J-Rod's got a question. He says, will the axial flux motors ever exist in RC?
question about axial flux motors. So I've done simulations on axial flux motors. It is not impossible to build a motor of the same volume as a typical 540 with axial flux. Let me start over. You can use the same frame size as a 540 using axial flux, and you can get the same amount of power density and torque density for the most part. However, the expense of making that particular motor, because you can't just have a single plane axial flux where we would have, let's say, stator and magnets and stator, or you can do it the other way where it's magnets, stator, magnets. We just choose the one that has stator on the end for this particular purpose. If we can do that, the length of one stack isn't going to get us very much. So to do that in a 540 framing, produce as much torque as we could in a 540, essentially searching for proper flux gap area to compare them with, you need 4 or 5, or at least 3, depending on how you configure it. You need 3 of those stacks, 4 of those stacks, 5 of those stacks to really start to compare to a normal 540, like a 4-pole, which is relatively optimized for the RPMs that we encounter in rock crawlers and most RC cars. It becomes really cost prohibitive to make that. If we could increase our diameter of motor, if we could get it to somewhere between 55 and 60 millimeters, we could do that in a single shot and not have to wind a whole bunch of stators for that, don't have to have a whole bunch of magnets for it. Then in that case, yes, I think axial flux would actually be a pretty good fit for our use, although lengthwise, it's really hard to beat radial flux. Like an outrunner. If we went to an outrunner versus the axial flux, if we went to a radial flux outrunner, then it's really easy to get the flux gap area that we need and ramble for a lot of time. Answering the question, axial flux motors, do we think that we'll see them in the RC realm? I really highly doubt it. Like it maybe for a comp rig, you could technically print a PCB, and as long as you had a return iron path and magnets that didn't just totally freaking blow those coils out, because they saturate really easy. You have to, for a printed coil, you have to have a lot of turns for one, and the trace width is just not very conducive to the high amp draws that a torque dense motor usually needs, unless you do really low kV. And if you do low kV, then you have to use a high voltage to try to get your torque out of it. And a coil is still going to be a coil at the end of the day, though. So yeah, I don't think so. Other topologies, on the other hand, if we're not just talking about the flux orientation, there will be other topologies in the future as far as rock crawlers are concerned. Pretty excited about what we will be able to do in the future. All right, I need to get my list out so that I know what I'm doing. We'll have to hide this list from you. It might have sensitive information on it. All right, so we got our wheels, rims, tires. Now we need to find a battery, which, yeah, that needs to happen last. I need a servo and an ESC.
So these are notes from the last video we shot.
Yeah, these are notes from the last video that we shot that you might be familiar with when it gets released in the future. You will need to check that out. That is right. You may be familiar with this information from the video that hasn't been released yet.
We got another question before you get too far.
Yeah.
What electronics like radio, ESC servo motors are you planning on that Phoenix?
Yes, that's a good question. On the Phoenix, what I'm going to use is probably the cheap radio that I have laying around, the Fly Sky or whatever it is. I will be using, let's see, in the Phoenix for my shift servos or dig servos and all that, I will be using more than likely these BLS 500 LPs, low profile. I might go to something more light duty though, like something cheap, just because, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see on that. At any rate, probably end up using those for the dig servo. I will use the BLS SHV 650 that just came out for my steering servo, or maybe an 800. I know that these will actually drop in, and it's a little deeper, so I can use a servo arm, servo horn without doing any modifications or without a funky servo horn. So yeah, I'll be probably doing that for the steering. For the motor, more than likely 2700 kV Polar Pro. That sounds right. I might go as low as 2200, but 2700 is kind of a sweet spot in my opinion. I will do that for the motor. For the ESC, likely a copperhead. Might do a Mamba X, but probably a copperhead. And what else? I guess that's pretty much all the electronics battery, whatever I got laying around, to be truthful. All right, so we are working on the Sherpa again. We got the 650. It should bolt in just like so and have plenty of room, which it looks like it does. So we shall need some 3mm screws. They don't need to be that long. They don't need to be that long. Where's my short screws?
We got a couple of product availability questions.
Product availability questions, my favorite. Crawlmaster Mini ESCs.
Jeremiah says he's getting one. He's got 3 Trailmaster Pros in the cart right now. Just he's looking for the Crawlmaster Mini. RTRs be back in stock.
Yeah, Crawlmaster Mini ESCs. It's gonna be a while. That's really all I can tell you. The supply chain issues have not been fun, and we are also making some running changes to it at the same time, which it delays the prototypes to be made when you can't get parts. So I am not comfortable putting any sort of time on that for the Crawlmaster Mini. Certainly, it won't be like you can wait around with stuff in your cart for the day and nab one. That's not going to happen. Sorry about that. I know that y'all want those, and I want to have them as well.
We've got a couple of super chat questions coming in. Capricorns. I don't know if that's a crypto thing or not, but this Capricorns, $4.99 super chat. He says, are the slate motors optimal for low speed? I have a 2850 kV 11 tooth. That's a single speed on TRX4. It's okay, but he expected a little better maybe?
Yeah. So the question is the low end control on a slate motor. How are they? They are not as good as a Polar Pro. They have a little bit of a hitchy startup. Once you are spinning, you can go a little bit slower, but that initial startup, yeah, it's a little grabby on the slate motors. If you do want to have better low speed control, you could upgrade to a Polar Pro. If you want even more torque density, go to the regular 540, not the stubby size. The stubby is going to be equivalent to your slate. If you want even more, then you go to that normal 540 size, and it ends up making the stator go from 15mm to 25mm, which is a huge boost in motor, active motor. 10 more. There's 10 more. All right, let's see. Oh, yeah, screws. Screws. A good question.
FPV, he hit you with a $5 super chat.
Hey.
Thank you for driving the hobby and for answering his questions. Maybe you'll sneak in a preview of some new motor tech.
Oh, thanks, J-Rod. Appreciate that. Let's see, some new motor tech, huh? I don't know. I'm not sure, actually, what I have laying around here that I could show you.
Sometimes in those videos we shoot, you got some stuff that's not out yet.
Oh yeah, a lot of videos. We definitely have stuff installed that I'm testing out. These are revolvers. This is the Revolver 2 housing, and all I can tell you, this one is 1800 kV. This one is 2150 kV, and we were testing basically different winding patterns when it boils down to it. And I'm not going to give you the results on those, but yeah, just trying to optimize stuff. It's always the goal, of course. Let's see. Is it going to be that size? No, it's not going to be that size, so this one. Cool. Found my box of screws. It's metal on metal, so I should probably do thread lock so these don't loosen, but oh well, too late now. Excellent. Appreciate the support on the Super Chat, guys. What do y'all think? Should we do channel memberships? Is that something that we should do? Let me know. All right.
We got another super chat coming in. I can't say his name's Figuardo.
Another super chat, and we can't pronounce the name evidently. Appreciate it.
It looks like a Spanish name, possibly.
Spanish name.
Hi, John. Any updates on the version of the Copperhead 10 ESC?
He's asking about the OEM Copperhead 10 ESC, the one where we're going to have some tweaks to it. And no, I don't have updates on that at this time either. I wish that I did, though. And if I had information on it, I would let you know. But we're kind of in a holding pattern. It seems that getting engineering jobs done isn't always easy from outside firms, and Castle is controlling that one as it is their OEM. So hopefully soon.
Well, we've had good results with the Copperhead.
Yeah, we've had really good results with the Copperhead, and with are like Puller Pro, it's very quiet. The only reason, or at least the biggest reason that I would want an OEM from them, besides some hardware changes that will be made, is that we can also have quieter operation. But when using either the Puller Pros or the upcoming Crawlmaster 10-pole end runners that we have, should be here in about any time now, those are very quiet. So it's not as big of a deal to have an audible ESC. All right, we're just going to bolt those with the front.
You got a programming video out, don't you?
Yeah, we do have a programming video for the Copperhead, let you know all the little tips and tricks, the best way to do it. All right. Yes, and this is the new 650, SHV 650 servo. Big power, real fast, and as you can see, it only has a single wire. It doesn't have the secondary power wire coming off like our old SHV servos. We've been selling them this way for however many years when we first came out with them. And everybody on the market stayed with that design. Once they became popular, it took about 2 years for the rest of the market to start producing them. And yeah, so we're actually going back to this. It makes it a lot cleaner to wire, and then for direct power, just got this little tap, put that on there, and bam, ready. All right, I guess I'll have to put sliders. Let me put sliders on my list because I'll need to either steal them from another vehicle or print some more of these sliders.
A lot of people are commenting. They're happy to see you wrenching again. Seems like your hands might be getting better.
Yeah.
Dexterity back.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it. Definitely getting some dexterity back in this hand. Let's see. Sliders. Got to write it down so I don't forget. Yeah. Chicken sliders. Yeah, hands are feeling better. I can wrench. I can't really do it a lot or do it fast, but in little bursts here and there. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I wrote down sliders. I'm going to take this back off. And maybe, oh, I already threw it away. Never mind. We'll just tuck this in right here for now.
Yeah, Jeremiah hit you with a $4.99 super chat.
Hey,
Jeremiah.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
He's saying the Mamba X Crawl Edition, will that work with the Trailmaster Pro? He'll be running direct power servos.
Yeah, Mamba X Crawl Edition with a Trailmaster Pro. Absolutely, that'll be a very smooth setup. I do suggest that you follow my Castle programming guides. You could essentially use what we use on the Copperhead, and it'll be all the same for you. The version of whatever we're programming with Castle really doesn't matter. They all use the same settings, which is very nice. So yeah, that'll be real smooth for you. Set it up with a nice throttle curve, and with the Trailmaster Pro, real smooth startup and direct power servos. Yeah, I'm a fan of direct power servos. Now we need our servo horn.
Juan says he likes your parts tray.
Yeah, I like the parts trays. Yeah, this is
the same Innova disc.
168 gram is my favorite putter. That's an Avier G-Star plastic, and either the whites or the oranges. I've got a whole stack of them, of course, and I got a whole stack of 175s as well. If it's a windy day, or if I want to have a putter as a driver, then sometimes I'll break out the 175s. Well, let's see. Back on track. Servo horns.
Before you get too far on track, Brian, he was asking earlier, you just super chatted the same question, so we could highlight you here. Will a non-famous person be able to get home swings for Scale Nationals?
Who was that again?
This is Brian G.
Brian, I appreciate it, Brian. So a winch for Scale Nationals. When is Scale Nationals again?
This says here in April.
April? I am not sure. We're waiting on some drivers. Really wanted to make some better drivers, so that it would be smoother on the low end. We want that better low speed control on the winch, more linearity to the throttle, and I'm not sure if we're going to have that. I've gone through 2 different controllers so far trying to prototype and make it better. Neither of them were what I wanted, and so we're waiting on the third, and hopefully that'll happen. If it happens within the next 2 months, then yeah, we could actually have some for Scale Nats. I will shoot for that. That's a good goal. I'll have to start pushing on the controller maker for this particular project. As we tried one engineer and it didn't quite work out, and we shall try another engineer and maybe that will work out. So yeah, looking for I've got a box of these servo horns here. Haha.
It sounds like Daniel wants to see how much he can get you talking, or let's see how quick you can answer this question. Can you explain what justifies the kV of a motor during construction?
What makes the kV of a motor during construction? Yes, talking about motor turns, basically. Motor turns are, by definition, the wrap of each wire around a pole, and that pole could be considered, as part of the stator. There's a thing called pole pitch. So on a stator that's a 12 slot with, say, a 4 magnet, you got 4 magnets, 12 slot stator, your pole pitch is going to be going over, if you go do a full pitch winding, you're actually going over 3 different slots. So your full pitch turns are what defines the turns of a motor. If you are doing, all right, I'm going to start getting off track before I even answer the question.
Can you answer that question in one note?
Yeah. So it's the turns. I was trying to define how turns are actually counted, but it's the turns of a motor. And let's say in some world, we have a 1-turn motor, and it is 1,000 kV. Let's just start right there. If you go to a 2-turn motor, you have twice the turns, and your kV goes in half. So this 1,000 kV motor is now 500 kV with 2 turns. Now, if we double our turns again to a 4-turn, we have our kV again. So this 4-turn is now 250 kV, and so on and so forth for this imaginary topology of a motor. This works for practically any motor, any construction. It is all universal. So this is a constant that we can always count on. But every different topology has a different 1-turn kV solution for whatever the kV is. And we can actually measure the kV by spinning up a motor with usually another motor. And you test, there's a few different ways to test kV, but this way is by using it as a generator, which is not always a good assumption. When you use a motor as a generator and it's designed to be a motor, it doesn't always give you a really good kV out of it because it's not efficient as a generator. It was designed to be a motor. But you can get the voltage out of it. When you are driving it that way, though, you do get voltage drop inside of the motor, and then there's technically the kV is an ideal spec and not an actual like, hey, you're spinning this fast with this much voltage applied. That's the other way to get a kV from a motor, is that you spin it up and it says, hey, I got 10 volts to me and your controller is making me spin 10,000 RPM, so the equivalent kV is 1,000 RPMs per volt. But also when you do it that way, you have the no load losses of the motor. So the true way, if you wanted to test kV of a motor, is that you would spin it up on 10 volts. You would see this RPM, but you would also see your no load amp draw. Then you would use a secondary motor to increase the motor RPM until you had 0 amps of draw on your test motor. Now that's going to push amps onto your slave motor in a sense, but this would actually get you a true kV measurement that is still, at least with a brushless motor, tainted by any sort of inefficiencies your ESC may be causing by either retarding or increasing your timing. But, however, at 0 amps, we can assume that the motor is technically doing no work at all, and there is your idealized kV from a motor system. You would divide it by the 10 volts that is driving it, of course, and make sure this is a 25. Yeah, 25. Yeah, man, I don't even know if I answered your question on that. God.
Question with a question.
Yeah. But you could use this idealized method of measuring kV in the real world, and between motor topologies, you get a really defined answer that is consistent for all motors that you would test on your system. By knocking out the no load amp draw, essentially you wipe it clean with your secondary motor that spins faster than your test motor. Of course, it has to spin faster. Yeah. And then only then you will have tested and found your true kV value. What am I looking over here for?
And all companies test kV the same, right?
And all companies definitely test kV the same. because of the difficulties of testing kV, I actually just used a basic, you put 10 volts to it, you see what the RPM is out of it, and those are the kV values that I typically represent to y'all. And what it does is it actually makes my motors seem a little bit faster than other motors, because it's taking that no load amp draw and it's kind of like building it into your kV. So theoretically, I mean, like I said, everybody uses different test methods, uses different test equipment. There is technically a way to get your proper kV. Like I told you, you spin it up and then you use a secondary motor to increase its RPMs until your amp draw of that particular motor is 0, and then you will have your idealized kV of that motor. So.
Okay, next question.
Next question.
Dale C. with that $5 super chat.
Thanks, Dale.
Dale says, do you think you'll ever dabble in wind turbine side of things? Making power versus using power? Small scale for residential use could be pretty cool.
Asking if I would ever get into wind turbines, and the answer is yes. Would I ever get into generating instead of consuming power? I've thought about that a long time. I definitely understand generators enough, and motor and generator topology is more or less swappable, but they will be designed to be either a motor or a generator, and they are, in almost all cases, more efficient when they are being used for what they're intended to be used for. So I'm definitely not afraid of doing that. The question is, when and where is it going to be useful in the future for me? Because a lot of times I won't get into something unless it's directly applicable and advantageous to my life. So I'll give it to you straight. Missouri electricity is cheap. It is extremely cheap. They're not afraid to use practically anything that they can get heat off of to make electricity. Our local power plant, it's a coal power plant, they have been known to burn things like wood, like rubber tires, like literally anything. And they have a scrubber on their stacks and all that. So you could make the argument that burning rubber is no worse than burning coal to make your electricity. But if it will burn, our local plant will burn it to make electricity. And you know what that makes is really cheap energy. So right now, it is actually getting to the point where I believe, what size? Oh, this is a Vanquish horn. It's going to be standard. Man, that knocked me off what I was talking about. Wind turbines. Yeah, so I think in Missouri, at least, I would first go solar. Just priced solar for the new build behind the hobby house. And for, a full power system, they were talking 350 square feet, and it was $16,000, which compared to 4 years ago, when it was like 30 plus, it's a lot more affordable. And if I'm not mistaken, at this point, that our solar panels will create a net positive amount of electricity, in that it takes X amount of megawatts to make your panel to begin with. You have to manufacture your panel. And panels will now produce more electricity over the life than what it took to manufacture them, which that is actually sustainable, renewable energy. I don't know if wind turbines are there yet. I have not read, at least, that wind turbines are net positive on energy. That it takes a lot of energy to make those blades. Ball bearings in a big, at least if we're talking a big wind turbine, ball bearings are not easy or cheap to manufacture, and they have to be replaced a lot in a wind turbine, especially a big one.
Yeah, followed up a little bit. He says he's an electrician with an industrial background, so he's familiar with both motors and generators and their controls as well. He says your products would be nice for off-grid application.
Oh, yeah.
Like little minis, huh?
Yeah. So Dale is saying use our motors for little mini generators, which if I had some running water anywhere near me, I would actually love to make one of those. You'll like toss it in, you can charge your phone up. Because let's be honest, like a phone, especially if your backlight isn't turned up, it doesn't use much information, or it doesn't use much electricity, which is basically information. But it doesn't use much electricity to work if you're not doing, you know, like heavy YouTubing or something like that, if you're just using your phone for phone calls or texts or whatever, a little bitty genset thrown into a creek could actually keep you in contact, you know, emergency situation or whatever. The high energy things are really the items that use motors, compressors, any sort of cooling, of course heating. But you know, if I'm off grid, I'm definitely not using electricity for heat. I'm going to be burning stuff just like our coal-fired power plant right down the road. Um, you know, and our cameraman, he doesn't live. I mean, do you live off grid? I guess you've got a power plug on your RV essentially, but you also use wood for heat. You have a wood stove in your RV. And why is this locking up? What is going on? Oh, I'm hitting my servo. I installed my servo backwards. Of course.
Hey, Daniel hit you with a $5 super chat. He was
Hey.
asking about KV. Got you off on that little
Thanks, Daniel.
He says he's honestly happy with your answer. Sorry to open up that can of worms.
Yeah.
If you ever want to hear John talk, just ask him about.
Yeah. I feel like I could answer that one better though. Still, that you were asking, you know, KV. How do the winds determine the KV? It's all about back EMF though, and that's why some motors may be a 1 turn for a certain KV, and other motors may be a 5 turn for the same KV. And you do have to keep within a golden zone for motor design if you want any sort of KV out of it, essentially. Because if you go way too fast, technically way too slow, you can get away with. But then, if you got to run a motor on 500 volts and it's only designed for 12, I can nearly guarantee you that the insulation on the windings isn't going to hold up anymore, and it's just going to become closer to like a Tesla coil than anything else. Not quite. I mean, there's nowhere near enough voltage to do that, but the electricity will jump over from winding to winding, and it won't be a motor. And if you also go too low on the turn count, it might not necessarily be a motor, just because it can't produce enough back EMF. Yeah, it can't produce enough back EMF to really even turn. So the startup. And that's a really good indication on a design is when you start noticing the minimum startup RPM isn't tracking linearly with the KV. You know that you're getting out of the range of what the stator is designed for, and the magnets are a pair in this fantasy world that I'm talking about again. That you got me again. At any rate, there's a golden zone. Just for, like everything else, there is a golden zone to where you can actually get outside of it with a motor. You can wind it too fast or you can wind it too slow, and then it doesn't really work well anymore. I would love to see what would happen. Let's say we had a motor that was KV'd low enough so that we could use 500 volts on it or 1,000 volts on it, and then you did, but you only had 500 volt insulation on it, which is the standard that we use for our motors is single amide, polyamide coating. It only has a voltage resistance like 500 volts or so. Oh yeah, and then if you powered it with 1,000, you'd probably have to put like 5,000 volts on it to really get it to jump. But if you did that, boy, it'd be a fun show at least. All right, so let's see if I can get my steering proper on this. I don't know what I did wrong, but my panhard was hitting my servo. Maybe I just got all this wrong. Let's see what happens this time. It seems more like it, but that's close. Can you tell I've never completed this compreg? It's like a puzzle for the steering. Most of it. Everything is really tight on these rigs. Oh, I see. I have to turn my third link over. There we go. Now that'll clear better. Well, now y'all got me thinking about motor design. Yeah, so there are some rotor designs that we will be pursuing in the future that they haven't been used in the RC industry yet. But a lot of the reason is that we're just kind of getting started with the 32-bit processors in the RC industry. The quadcopters have been using them for a while, but they never have really used the processing power as it could be used, I guess is the best way to put it. There's a lot of processing power that the 32-bit architecture just really doesn't take advantage of. But with rotors that aren't exactly permanent magnet rotors, all right, I need to turn that again. With 32-bit processing, it can actually control them well. And we can start to do some real fun stuff with a back EMF. But it can't just be a typical salient pole topology. That's why everybody's just done the simple throw a magnet onto a rotor and call it good, which is salient pole. Or at least could be defined as salient pole depending on how you design your magnets. And yeah, all right.
Hey, Kevin got kind of a sad one here for you. He says, Mr. Holmes, I'm no longer able to enjoy the RC hobby, but I couldn't leave without telling you thanks. You have been an innovator, and you've motivated many companies to do better. Never change, he says.
I appreciate that. I don't know if y'all could hear that over there, but one of our cohorts is going to not be with us as far as playing with toys. Let's appreciate the feedback. I appreciate that. Whatever you get into or wherever you're going, I hope you have fun with it, and we'll be here. We'll be here playing with toys.
Or maybe the second channel.
Yeah, maybe on the second channel. You can maybe find us there. If you're not interested in crawlers anymore, then you can find us there. What are we going to be doing there? I don't know yet. When is the channel going to start? I don't know. Probably about as soon as we get the Crawlmaster ESCs back in stock. That's when we can launch the second channel. All right, this guy, everything is in the way to put my servo horn on. So, I'll take the servo out for it's only the second time. Make sure I'm not losing parts. Oh, I can't take it apart yet. It's still, well, I'll try. Still attached to my tie rod. All right, this, and then, oh, I can hear our happy yard dog friend outside having fun today.
Nice weather here.
It is nice weather, although we're filming inside because it's raining outside. It's supposed to be 70 and sunny today, and it's still warm, but it's definitely raining. Yeah, how's the weather in your area? It seems to be unseasonably warm, but I don't know. It's not like I track the weather every day and compare it to the last 30 years of data. Or is it data? Spell it out in the comments for me.
So, somebody was lurking on your shelf back there. They says, what's the vehicle on the right of your head on the top shelf?
You're right.
I think he may be talking about your right, which is that one, yes.
This is my left.
Your other my right.
If this is what you're talking about, it is. This is a Tamiya. Oh no, I can't remember suddenly. Well, yeah, it's an old Toyota body from Walmart. It was the New Bright FJs. It was just a total toy grade, and we ripped these bodies off of them. It's a heavy, hard body, and I put it on a Tamiya XC1 chassis, I think. Nowhere near enough gear reduction back in the day, but it it had a solid rear axle, independent front, and I think it has something like 15 to 1 gear down or something ridiculous. So
it's just off the shelf rig.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
In a crawler to.
He said your other right. He doesn't care about that.
Oh, the other
I
right.
didn't say he didn't care, but your other right.
This guy. I think. All right. So.
That's probably,
Yeah. So if you're asking about this guy, that is a Recluse, and it is based off of an SEX10. And the Recluse was an aftermarket chassis that RCP crawlers sold for a long time. That one seems to be hollow tube, which I'm told may have been like an early prototype or something like that. I am not quite sure. That particular one from Chip Cross,
He said he doesn't care about that one either.
It wasn't that one either.
He didn't say he didn't care, but he did say he's talking about the one that looks more like a semi-truck.
The one that looks more like a
What's
semi-truck.
Unimog?
Semi-truck. This guy, maybe it's that one.
I think that's maybe what he's...
All right. So if you're talking about that rig, this one is also based off an SCX10. This is a Unimog cab from a Bruder toy, Bruder, and I sent it off to a dude, had him fab up the holding system for it. It didn't quite get finished. I wasn't in a position to finish it myself, so he sent it back to me, and that one has been sitting on the shelf for probably 7 years plus. Never finished that one, but I can't just, steal it and take parts from it. I don't really play with SCX10s much anymore. I used to have this huge collection of nothing but axial parts, and I refused to get new rigs because it's like I got all the parts I need for my axials. I've got my drive lines, and I have my ring and pinion, and get off my lawn because I have all the parts for my rigs. And then let's see, which rig was it that basically got me off of that? And now it's just like, I got a bunch of rigs, and if one of them breaks, I'll grab another one. I think it was a TRX4, actually. That one came around. I was like, you know what? I might just get another one of these. And then I got another one of them. And then I got another one of them. And then I got another one of them. And so...
they can't even see the top shelf here.
Oh, yeah, I can't even see the top shelf. Yeah, there's more rigs. Yeah.
I couldn't even guess how many rigs you got total.
Let's
Besides
see.
These,
Yeah, and I got a lot more rigs at the shop, and I got more of them at the house. And there's ones on the floor. Let's just count for fun. I mean, I'm at a decent stopping point on this, actually. It looks like I don't know if that's full. That's not full steering. Oh, I'm so close though. I'm getting there.
Back it up just a little so that main cam can see what you're seeing. When you were tilting that up so we could see it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I was just testing the steering, see if I was getting full lock. It looks like it is hitting. It looks like I might have to do some research on the forums to get that steering just right. That's tricky. Oh yeah, counting rigs though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 11-ish broke. Yeah, we won't count that. 11, 12, 13 still broke. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We'll call this 21, 22, 23. In the van, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Around here, 29, 30. Yeah, let's show that one.
Different.
Yeah, so this is a Hustler. It's the old Hustler chassis, which I bought it just because I had the Hustler. I've got a couple of more Hustlers laying around, actually. 2 new in box right there that I see. And where did the other Hustler go? That one may be at the shop still. Yeah, but at any rate, cool old chassis, also made by RCP. They really made a lot of aftermarket chassis back in the day. And this one, this would have been, like 2008-ish, maybe? 2007? Pretty early when I started Holmes Hobbies. Maybe 2006. Man, I don't know. But this was some XTM axles. This is built up as an old super comp rig. this is like a super comp rig from back in the day. Even these tires, these in today's terms, terrible tires. They also have the really fat, wide aspect ratio to them instead of being like tall, skinny guys. And this guy is heavy, and there's not even added weight to it yet. Man, we used to run some of these super rigs back in the day with so much added weight that 10 pounds was kind of the average, but a lot of guys were running like 13, 15, 18 pounds. Some guys nearing 20. They didn't usually win unless it was something where you had to have a bunch of PSI for traction. Then every now and then the heavy guys would win. But yeah, these days supers are like 7 pounds, 8 pounds. Most of them is about, super light, real thin, tall tires. The tires were that big, I swear. It was, all right. So cool little rig. That's another one. So 30 of them here. This room. No, I counted the one in this room. Let's see any. I think there's just one, and then the 3 that are in the van because the van's out front, and that counts for something. It didn't count the little mice. Rockstar, Basher, Rocksta.
You got a handful of those.
Yeah, a couple of these. I never finished them out. It was more just set them on the shelf, sort of rigs.
What about the Redneck Roadkill?
Oh yeah, Redneck Roadkill. Forgot about those. I don't even know where they are. Not in this sea of rigs. All right, back on this guy. We'll get it done. I need sliders. I need my battery. Oh, I forgot to write stuff off. I actually did get wheels, rims, and tires. Oh yeah, see, start list. I already marked that off. I wasn't joking when I told you that I put start the list on my list just so I could mark something off. Servo, all right. ESC, until I get the sliders, there's really not much reason to mount that yet. And I need to go get some servos fixed. Had some SLP SHV 500 LP servos delivered that weren't quite to our specs, and so we are redoing those in-house. And I am, fortunately, the guy that is the best at soldering for the task. So yeah. All right. Just a little bit more to go on this, and we will be done. I think we're going to call it good there, unless there's any more super chat questions. Ha
I think we're doing all right. People are
cool.
liking you showing those old rigs and stuff and what you got. 53 with 66. Come on, everyone. People are
tuning in.
Hit the like button up here.
Yeah.
People enjoyed the stream today. They're glad to see you back. Maybe we'll do more of these.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely try to live stream as much as we can. We had a little bit of time this afternoon, although I do have other work to do. But, yep, we're going to call it there for today. Thanks for tuning in, as always. Hope you have a great day. Oh, maybe I wrench just a little more.